The small grey courtroom felt colder than usual that morning, as if the walls themselves sensed the storm brewing inside. Rain lashed against the tall windows, drawing jagged streaks across the glass and casting smeared shadows on the polished floor. People in the gallery shifted uneasily, murmuring to one another in hushed tones while glancing apprehensively towards the front. At the defendant's table sat Staff Sergeant Ethan Holt, a 39-year-old veteran of 2 combat tours in Afghanistan. His once broad shoulders had narrowed over the years, and his skin had lost its sun-kissed hue. A bulky leather brace clung to his left leg, and a pair of crutches leaned beside him. His face, marked with the weathered lines of a man who had seen too much in one lifetime, remained composed and upright. He wore his old dress uniform, not new but clearly maintained with care, each thread a quiet reminder of who he had once been and still was inside. But Ethan wasn't there for violence, theft, or fraud. He wasn't a criminal. He was on trial for missing 2 municipal court dates due to a stack of unpaid parking citations that piled up as he struggled with a disjointed public transit system ill-suited for those with mobility impairments. The court system, like many others, showed little regard for his limp, something he had painfully come to realize. Presiding over the case was Judge Miriam Fallon, known for her strict no-excuses interpretation of the law. Cold-eyed and clinical, she had a reputation for efficiency and a ruthless demand for compliance. For her, a missed court appearance was clear-cut. At the prosecution table, Assistant City Attorney Ross Campbell barely concealed his boredom, considering Ethan's case a mere slam dunk, just another file to close before lunch. The courtroom clerk called for order, and Judge Fallon entered briskly, her black robe rippling behind her like a cape of judgment. She took her seat at the bench and scanned the docket. "Staff Sergeant Ethan Holt," she announced, her tone as cold as the rain outside. "You are charged with contempt of court for failing to appear as ordered. How do you plead?" Ethan struggled to rise, pressing one hand against the table and the other on his crutch. "Not guilty, Your Honor," he replied, his voice calm and restrained. Fallon frowned, flipping through the slim case file. "Excuses have already been logged. Contempt is contempt. You were ordered to appear. You did not." "I tried, ma'am," Ethan began, but she raised her hand sharply. "We will move to sentencing," she said. "Your military service is noted in consideration, and I am inclined toward leniency." A rustle of surprise moved through the room, but she added pointedly, "This courtroom demands respect. Before I pass sentence, you will stand without assistance like any other citizen and face this court properly." The air in the room snapped tight, and Ethan didn't move. "You will stand," she repeated, "or I will hold you in further contempt." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Even Campbell's smirk faltered. Ethan stared at the judge, his leg, shattered by an IED years ago, trembling under the table. Doctors had warned him that standing unassisted could worsen the damage. He might collapse or never walk again. Still, he reached slowly for the crutches and paused, grim determination settling in. He set them aside. A hush fell over the room, all eyes fixed on him as he placed one foot down. His right leg, though weakened, held, but his left leg spasmed under the strain, the leather brace groaning. He clenched his jaw, muscles straining and fingers trembling. For 3 agonizing seconds, he stood, swaying, quaking, but standing. Then his knee buckled violently. The gallery gasped. Ethan crumpled to the floor, his shoulder hitting first, then his head striking the tile with a terrible thud. His crutches clattered away, and a woman cried out in the back row. A veteran clenched his fists and started to rise. Even Campbell flinched. But the most stunning moment came next. Sprawled on the floor, Ethan tried to get up, his limbs trembling and breath ragged, but he pushed on, teeth gritted, refusing to quit because he was a soldier, and soldiers rise. "Bailiff," Fallon finally said, her voice tight. "Assist the defendant." The bailiff, an older man with creased eyes and a silver buzz cut, knelt beside Ethan. "Easy now, son," he murmured. "Easy." "I'm okay," Ethan rasped. I can. No, came a woman's voice, cutting through the chaos. A figure rushed through the courtroom doors. It was Sarah Holt, Ethan's younger sister. Dressed in blue medical scrubs with a hospital badge, tears streamed down her face. "Don't move," she pleaded, falling to her knees. "Please don't. You've done enough." She gathered her brother in her arms, whispering comfort as she cradled him. The judge remained silent. Campbell looked away, and the room saw not a man on trial, not a failure, but a hero on the floor, one who had given more than most ever would and was still trying to rise. An elderly man stood in the gallery, then another and another. Within seconds, a dozen veterans had risen, no shouting, no violence, just silent defiance. "Sit down," Fallon ordered. They didn't. An older woman with medals pinned to her chest stepped forward, her voice shaking. "My grandson died overseas," she said. "If he saw this, if he saw you doing this to a man like him, he'd be ashamed of this courtroom." A rumble of agreement echoed. Fallon's gavel came down hard. "Order!" A veteran near the front growled. "He gave his leg for this country, and you're punishing him for not standing." From the jury box, a young woman stood, then another and another. Nearly half the jurors rose. The bailiff returned to Ethan's side. "We'll do this your way, Sergeant." Together with Sarah, he helped Ethan sit up. His breath came heavy, but it grew stronger. The courtroom was no longer Fallon's. It belonged to Ethan now. Pale and shaken, Fallon looked around. She had lost the room. The crowd began a low, thunderous chant. "Honor him! Honor him! Honor him!" Fallon glanced at Campbell, but he was already backing away, shame etched on his face. Surrounded by people who saw him not as broken but as brave, Ethan sat on the floor. Finally, Fallon rose, her voice unsteady. "Mr. Holt," she said, stepping down from the bench, "this court owes you an apology." The gallery fell silent again. "I ordered you to stand without understanding what you've already endured. I failed you. I failed everyone here who understands sacrifice." She drew herself up. "All charges against Staff Sergeant Ethan Holt are dismissed with prejudice. His record will reflect nothing but the honor he's earned." Applause swept through the room like a wave, and Fallon stepped forward, stopping in front of Ethan. Without hesitation, she dropped to one knee and bowed her head. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "And I thank you." Gasps echoed. Ethan, still shaking, reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder, a silent, powerful act of forgiveness. Sunlight pierced the windows. The storm had passed outside. The crowd grew, a mix of veterans in uniform and civilians waving flags and handmade signs. "Honor our heroes. Ethan Holt. American strength." When Ethan appeared in his wheelchair, silence swept the street. Then came applause. Steady, reverent, raw. A reporter pushed forward. "Mr. Holt, what do you want people to know?" Ethan took a breath. "I didn't stand because a judge told me to," he said. "I stood because that's what we do. Even when we fall, we rise." He paused, his voice calm despite the emotion in his eyes. "And sometimes when we can't stand, that's not weakness. It's proof we gave everything we had." His words traveled far and wide, viral clips, national headlines, and changes in law. Ethan returned to a quiet life, but not for long. One evening, a knock came at his door. Sarah opened it to find 3 officials, including a poised woman named Valerie Price from the Office of Veterans Affairs. "Staff Sergeant Holt," she said warmly, "we're here to ask if you'd accept an appointment as a national ambassador for veterans' rights." Ethan was stunned. "I'm no politician," he said. "You don't need to be," Valerie replied. "You just need to be who you are." He thought of the courtroom, the faces, the fallen friends. "I'll do it," he said. From then on, he spoke across the country. Crowds grew, changes spread, courthouses restructured policy, and cities began honoring veterans more than just one day a year. One mayor even banned any judge from forcing a wounded veteran to stand ever again. He visited Arlington National Cemetery, placing poppies at the graves of fallen comrades, whispering their names: Bobby, Marcus, JT, Angela. This isn't a memorial, he told a crowd there. It's a promise. One morning, he returned to that same courthouse where a statue now stood out front, a soldier on one knee using crutches as swords. The plaque read, "Dignity is not measured by how long a man stands, but by how fiercely he refuses to fall." Ethan touched the cold bronze as Sarah stood beside him, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I didn't stand alone," he said, and beneath the golden sunrise he saluted the memory of every battle that had brought him home, not whole, but unbroken, forever standing, even from his knees.